Hey there, Andrea from Chasing Whimsy. I'm just finished this image and I was showing in the group how I used a smudge brush to make these dresses look like feathers. These were just tulle dresses that we're wearing, and then I started playing with the smudge tool and got totally addicted, and it was super fun, and I want to show you how I did it. The only thing is the brushes that I use are I need to find them online because they were part of a course, and I'm not sure. I believe they are available online, but I'm going to show you with Photoshop brushes that are already there what you can use, and then I will continue to look for those brushes and see if I can find them online, or so that you know. So the brush that I used for this, if you can see, is, let me just find it here. It's called a Texture One Smudge Brush. And I'm just going to make it big so you can see the pattern on it. See how it's funky little dots like this, which is what kind of gives you all different sort of shapes as it's pulling. The one that I would recommend using and that I'll show you using in here is called a rough round bristle, and you can find it in the, let's see, rough round bristle. So this is what it looks like. This is just a regular Photoshop brush. So it's just a little bit more, it still has all the little variations, etc., but it's more of a perfect circle than the other one, so it just pulls a little bit more perfect. There's a little bit less variance in the pulls, but it will still do the same idea. So I'll show you that because that's readily available, and that is under the, if you go up into your load brushes, it is in the thick heavy brushes. You should be able to find that. It's the rough round bristle is what it's called in Photoshop. So let's just do that, and I will show you how this was done. Now the image, this is before I had done really anything to the image, so I actually haven't even dodged and burned this yet, and I would strongly suggest that you do your dodge and burn first, because then there's a lot more streaks and stuff that will come in. It'll look a whole lot more cool. But I just want to show you the technique of how you actually do this. You can go back and dodge and burn afterwards, but if you've already got that in there, you've got much more darks and lights to make really cool streaks and stuff. So we'll go to just that rough round bristle. I found that using that one, it needs to be fairly high in strength, like probably 95. You could even go 100% probably, but I'm going to do it at 95 strength. And you want to make sure you're on Smudge tool down here, which is where the blur tool is as well. So Smudge tool, and then pick that brush at 95. And I'm going to zoom in real close first to show you, real close, really close, to just show you what it's doing first. So I'm going to kind of do it the size of a couple strips of fabric, at least for this part. And as you're looking for where to start, you see how there's lots of different layers of this tool, right? So there's this yellow part here is more underneath, and this. So anything that's underneath, do it first, because you want to have the things that are on top obviously on top so that you get that same dimension that's there. But I'm first just going to show you what this tool does up close so you can see. So I'm just going to grab it and I'm going to pull down. And you can see it's going to, I'll do some over here, it's grabbing and smearing together. Oh no, see, I grabbed a bit of the blue and it did that, so make sure you don't do that. Make it smaller if you need to get in smaller places. Always do this on a new layer. I duplicated the layer that I was, so I have a fresh layer. Either do Control-Alt or Control-Alt-Shift-E to stamp a new layer, just because that way if you do go over top, and to get into edges you're going to want to go up this way anyway, over top of what you have, so then you can put a mask on that and actually wipe it off where you've gone, because that way you get your lines going right past where you need to, if that makes sense. If you just try to go like this, you can't get the same swoop that you would doing this way. So doing another layer and then erasing back is the easiest way to do that. So that is how you're going to be doing that. You go smaller as you go along these edges. I actually find it really fun when it's a bigger brush because it kind of follows along slowly behind what I'm doing, which is really kind of fun. So I'm just going to back that up here. I'll just make sure this is, you can see all the dresses here. And I'm going to turn that one off. We'll just start over again. I'm just going to make a couple layers here so I can show you some different stuff. So I'll work on this one. So with that brush at 95, I'm going to, so this is the lowest layer back in here. This one is also lower here, so I'm going to start with those. And the trick for the bottom, when you get down to the bottom edges, if I go like this and I stop, it's okay. Like it'll sort of stop, but I find it way nicer on edges if I let go before I get there because it kind of throws itself away. So if I go and I'm going to let go, like I've already let go and it's still going. So it's like, and you get these cool little swoops that way. That's just a little technique that you can try. So let's do this properly here. Almost got my voice back. Yay. All right, so smudge tool, that bristle, rough round bristle, 95. So I'm going to start with this one down here. And then I'm going to go in here because this is my inside in here, behind here. And then this one. And then I'm going to go to the back, make it a little bit smaller to do up here. I might just sort of follow it off on that one. You want to follow what you have there. This little section right here is behind, so I'm going to do this in behind. This time I'm not swooping it because I don't really need to. You can see how this one's coming over top and these are not. So here's a situation where you'd want this one going that way, and then you would come back with this one over top. And that's how you get the layers built up nice and smooth. And then let's go a little bit bigger again. Whoops, I ran off my mouse. Bad. You shouldn't be. I'm doing this with a mouse. You can use your tablet or a mouse, but this is actually not bad with a mouse. But you will have more control with the tablet too. The swooping is easier. The swooping. Because who doesn't want to swoop? Okay. So you're going to let's just do all the basics first, and then we'll go back. So this part is lower behind here. This back here is lower or behind other stuff. This is behind. It smooths it out so nice. I'm just kind of going straight down right now, which is boring, but we're going to fix that after. This one's behind. Now there's a little bit in between here that's behind, so just look and see what's under. And do all the under stuff first. And these ones are on top. I think we got most of it there. And if you want to swoop your edges a little bit more, so if I want to make this dress come out a little bit, I would go whoosh and curve it as it comes out. I could, you can totally reshape it if you want. Oh, see, I don't like that, so I'm just going to back. Control Z. Control Alt Z, I'm sorry, it's delete. So kind of like that. Let's do this back one. Beware her dress was wonky here on this little girl's. I can now smooth that with this one beside and just totally smooth that out. Now if I had dodge and burn, there's no detailing or dodge and burn on this yet, so this would be darker in behind here where it would have been dodged already, so that would make much more distinction between their two dresses there. So do make sure you dodge and burn first before you do this. This one's really not going to show much detail. I had to do quite a bit of work, and this dress in the back was solid white versus these ones that have another color of tulle in them, so I've done a lot of work on that to give it. I actually took some of this color, put in some streaks, and then actually put a brown color overlay over it just to help it blend in a little bit. You can see on this one that I've done that to make it match these ones, and you can see how the shadowing and stuff is in here. Some of that I did after, but all these extra streaks and stuff were because I had dodged and burned first along the tulle. Okay, so that's the basics. I don't really like how that swoop went. But this is where you can start playing with the feathery look. You could make different layers on this dress, for example. If I start here, now I haven't gone up doing the edge here. This is what I'm talking about where you need to overlap what you're doing. So you can see where I've missed this segment here. So let's start here. And what you would do is actually swoop it right up into that so that you're finishing the edge. Then you would just put on a mask, and with a regular brush, probably even a hard brush, you can get right into the edge on a mask. You can then delete that, just go back a little bit past it so you can see where the edge of the arm is, and then you can go really small, in nice and close, and just bring up what you did there, right up close along the edge. That way you'll get a nice clean Actually, you do want it on soft. A nice clean edge with the pattern coming right up. You may actually want to reduce that a little bit because there was initially a shadow, and now that we've done this, we've lost that shadow that was there. So I would just put my brush down to maybe 10% opacity and just sweep some of that away. And that'll give you, you won't be able to tell that it's not brushed all the way up there, but see how it's bringing back the shadowing that's there, and maybe just feather that down a little bit here too. Like that, okay? So you can get your shadow. If you need to add some more shadow in there, just do it. Just put a new layer with some black at very low light opacity and add some shadow back in there if you need to. Something else that I didn't actually do very well on this, when I was bringing that swoop up, I didn't curve it in the way they actually were. So they kind of go up and then in a little bit because they're tied to the waist, and I kind of just went straight up, so I don't quite have the angle of those right. So just make sure you're following your angles. This should have come up and swooped in a little bit this way to keep the angles, and not, because it just looks too straight down like this. So all those little things, just really make sure you're following the direction of the tool pretty much exactly as you're doing that, your sweeps with the smudge brush. So let's just show you some other fun things you can do with this tool. Back to my smudge brush. So if I want to make it smaller, I can actually make more layers on this dress. So I've started swooping some of these out. I can go a bit smaller. Bring some swoops out this way. That's how you do like little ones. I could actually build up layers of feather. If I started here and did some swoops, I could create like another layer. And again, this would need to be dodged and stuff so you can see them better. But you could actually create a whole bunch of different layers of this dress. See how I'm just letting it go? And it's building up layers of feathers. So that's one thing you can do. Smaller, I just did, on this one, I did just some smaller feathery detailing on this one. On the big girl, I wanted to have just some swoops coming out a little bit, so I just sort of started coming down the edge of this. Follow and swoop wherever. Swoop along the edge. This is where I just got totally addicted and I couldn't stop making swoops. Especially with the other tool, which I'm really hoping I can find for you guys because it works better. But this is pretty good too. Make them bigger if you want. The other one seems to taper a little nicer. I think that's what I like about it. Let me just show you the difference with what the other one does. And it's done at about 80% when you do it. So this is this brush, which is a little bit more random. But when you swoop with this one, it just has a little bit more, I don't know, they're just featherier. Because it's not perfectly round, you get a little bit more edge to it. You can find, when I just Googled smudge brushes, there's a whole bunch of free ones out there, so just grab a few and try, because, or brushes that are made for hair or something like that, smudging for hair. I'm going to look through a bunch of those too. If I can't find this one in particular, then I will do that and show you. And it just makes nicer. I'm going to just start all over with this brush. You can just see the difference that this one makes. I just find it easier. That's good. You won't see a whole lot at this part, but that's why I'm coming down like this. Because it's very big, it's going, again, do your bottom ones below, which I should have done first. Make it a little bit smaller. If you have a slow computer, smudging can hang up your computer. And then this one would be over top of all of that again. So if this was coming all the way up, you would want to bring this swoop over top. And then I would just make it smaller to start doing smaller feathers off of that. I'm just barely touching with my tablet. I'm just kind of touch and swoop, just a very light touch. I think they might actually be pressure sensitive, maybe. Let me just see. No, not really. So light swoop. So you can see, you can just pull these forever and make all these cool little swoopy things. Like so. So that's how you do that. I just want to quickly show you too, with just a regular smudge brush, someone had mentioned that they were having some issues with a smudge brush. Her skin is pretty awesome already. I haven't done, again, any dodge and burn, but I'm just going to show you, just with even just a soft brush, a regular soft brush, what it should look like when you're smudging. So if you watch the little edge blur one that I showed you where I was working on the wings to smooth them out, you follow lines that you want to keep and you cross over lines that you don't. If I wanted to soften this edge of the shadow that was on her face here, I would not have this on 80%. I actually maybe about 40 when I'm doing these. You would go this way to obliterate a line. That's even too strong on this brush. This is just the regular soft brush in Photoshop. So this way smudges gets rid of, if you're against the shadow, you're going to pull that shadow, right? This direction smooths, keeping the lines. And you can either go tick, 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 tick like this to get sort of a brush stroke look, or you can sweep back. I'm holding it down and I'm sweeping back and forth and I'm following the contour of her cheek to just kind of smooth back and forth. Again, you would have done dodge and burn and stuff on this already so that it's not, see, I'm pulling the shadow in, so you just have to be careful which direction you pull and not move your shadows around too much either, because you always refer back to your original. See how I've changed the shape of her face? I've pulled this highlight down too far and now her cheek looks different, so you want to go back and make sure you're not doing that. But the smudging I don't usually do near the beginning. I will go in close, like on this nose. Whoops. This would be a great place to use the smudge brush. Don't mind what's over there, but just to soften any kind of grainy bits that you see. But you want to follow, I'm going back and forth, following the direction that you see to keep any lines that need to remain there. And going around this way, up this way, over this way. Just like you would be painting it with a paintbrush, this way. Okay, and then you can smooth out any grain and stuff that you have. I want to keep that cupid's bow, so I'm not in this one. I'm going to follow this direction. This one I'm going to follow this direction. You can sweep this way, that way. You can scrub along here and smooth this out. Just, you're always changing your brush in the directions that you're going with that. There's a little bit up on the eyes. Let's smooth her eyes a little bit. So I would follow the shape of her eyes here. I would maybe go over the highlight area first. If I want to get rid of this line, again, I would go this direction and then go back and just smoothing as I go. Make it a little bit bigger. Now again, this other smudge brush that I'm going to find for you, this is the shape that it is, and again, it's just got some wonky edges rather than a pure circle, and it just does such a nice job. I do this one at about 40, and it's much smoother and easier to work with. You don't have to be quite as careful with how you're pulling. You still want to make sure you're getting, you know, if I want to bring this eyeshadow up, I can bring up more of this darker eyeshadow and I can blend it up this way. There's some little gritties here, so this will just soften those gritties right out. It's an awesome brush, and this again is from Deerdorf, Scott Deerdorf, but I'm going to see if I can find, I believe that he said that these are available online. He might have just tweaked the settings a little bit, so I'm going to see if I can find them, because this one really works nice. But that, I mean, if you got here's a blemish, you can actually smudge out a blemish, and then make sure you're going in bigger. These little hairs and stuff that are showing, follow the hairs. Go this way if you need to get rid of them more to erase them, right? Go crosswise to what you need to erase, and then go back and smooth in right along your edges. That's just one way to smooth skin, is using a brush like this, and this really is for the real painted look if that's what you're looking to do. However, there are other things that I teach in my course on painting skin of how to do different things. You can use denoise filters. You can use just Photoshop's denoise actually works quite well to do that. I also use Greater Than Gatsby. They've got some skin smoothing actions in there, which are essentially surface blurs, a lot of them. You can use a surface blur. You can run up in your filters and run a surface blur. It takes a long time on my computer, so I don't, and you just brush some of that over top. It kind of will do the same idea. Those are depending on how much you need, how much you want, and the painted look. Mostly right now when I'm doing skin, I'm I do all my dodge and burn. I do I do all my corrections first. I do, getting rid of blemishes, balancing colors, things like that. I'm just going to turn off that cheek because it's annoying me. Um, and then I'll kind of smooth it at the end when I'm done all of that to just make sure everything is nice and blended and looks really painted. So I hope that gives you some idea. Go have fun with this feather brush because it's just a lot of fun to play with and make feathers on your dresses. And again, I'll show you the finished, what I did with these. When it's dodge and burned, you can see how much better it looks. I then went back at the end and added some extra highlights on some of the high things. Like you can see, there's like a little streak of white right here. I just went in and painted that on with a regular paintbrush, adding in that detail. That's the kind of detail that I do in my work. That's why it takes me so long. That's why I charge what I do. So that's all the little things that you need to know for adding those sort of details. And again, that sort of stuff is taught in the Dodge and Burn course. And I'll do a little bit, touch more on that when I do the compositing course and some of the finishing things, because a lot of times I'll come back and do that when I notice, hey, this needs a little bit more dimension or something. And so I'll do Dodge and Burn more than once, many times. So hope that gives you some insight. Go have fun with smudge brushes.